This is Sorry Ari's ASMR. I am Ari, and today I have a small stack of books that I wanted to show you. I received a request some time ago to show book covers and describe what is on them. I do not recall when that was requested. It might have even been back in November, but we're getting to it now. So I have picked out a few books from our collection. We unfortunately do not have a lot of physical books anymore. As we were moving in college, my husband and I unfortunately got rid of some of our books, like we donated them as we moved. And now that we're older and looking back on that, I so wish that we had not. But we do have some books still, and now we do like to collect them if we can, especially books that we know that we really like. But we do have a nook that we read a lot of digital books on, and that's really convenient when we're traveling so that we don't have to lug around these physical books. So I do read quite a bit on there, but I picked out some of these books because I thought that they maybe had interesting covers or I had some fun things to say about them. But I'm not going to dive too much into each one with the content of the book. We're going to mostly be doing just kind of a brief overview as we look at the covers. So I'm going to move these out of the way and we will get started. So this first book here is Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. This is considered, I think, a modern classic. And the cover of this one is mostly a white background, but the image is printed in this kind of glossy ink, so it really stands out against the white and it feels really nice. And the image here is of a person that is kind of integrated with machinery and cogs. And knowing the content of this book, I think that the imagery is meant to represent the idea of everyone having a specific role in society, like cogs in a machine, and the universe that this book is set in that really plays out. And the title of the book, Brave New World, is here in black, and the author's name is in red, and I think that's a really interesting choice because it really stands out, especially with the imagery really being in blacks and grays. animation. There's like lots of machinery all along the spine. And it says Brave New World. Aldous Huxley. And this is the back. Aldous Huxley's Toward the Force, Brave New World is a darkly satiric vision of a utopian future where humans are genetically bred and pharmaceutically anesthetized to passively serve a ruling order. A powerful work of speculative fiction that has enthralled and terrified readers for generations. It remains remarkably relevant to this day as both a warning to be heeded as we head into tomorrow and as thought-provoking, satisfying entertainment. I really like the choice of having the ink really stand out, like the imagery really stands out. I don't know if it's going to come across in the camera, but this is really glossy. All of the illustrations are really glossy, and so it just feels really nice against the almost matte white cover. I think that the cover of this book is just really creative, and I think that there are quite a few versions of the cover art of this book, but this is the one that we have. This is the next book that I chose because we love this series, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So this is just one of the books in the series. We don't have all of them. We have been trying to recollect them, but this is another one of those classics. So it says New York Times bestseller, Douglas Adams, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And this one has a little creature here. And I picked this book out because I think that I recall hearing kind of a funny story about the little creature that shows up on the cover art for the series. And I have not fact-checked this story, so maybe take it with a pretty large grain of salt, but I recall hearing that this little creature is called Cosmic Cutie, I think. I think that's kind of generally known, maybe, at least amongst the readers and fans of the series. And they wanted to include this creature on the cover art, despite Douglas Adams not wanting it on the covers. And for the later editions, he really tried to push to remove it because this was not a creature in the series. Like, it had not really shown up anywhere in the writing, and so he didn't like that it was there. But his publishers felt that American audiences had grown to love the little creature, so all of the later editions, like, this is what people thought when they thought of the Hitchhiker's series. They thought of this little creature on the cover, and so the publishers decided that it needed to stay. So this cover is this really deep navy blue. Maybe not quite navy, maybe in this lighting. It's actually almost maybe a little bit purple. And also this green. I'm trying to think of nice terms to describe this green. It's not quite lime green, it's a little bit more muted than that. And so up here it has the green background with Douglas Adams in the purple blue color. And then down here there is the purple blue background with the writing in that green color. And of course the little creature here. And this is what the spine looks like. It's pretty basic. It has that green color here with his name written in that purple blue color. But down here it is black with white writing. This says, seconds before Earth is demolished to make way for a galactic freeway, Arthur Dent is plucked off the planet by his friend Ford Prefect, a researcher for the revised edition of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, who, for the last 15 years, has been posing as an out-of-work actor. Together, this dynamic pair begin a journey through space aided by a galaxy full of fellow travelers. Together, this dynamic pair began a journey through space aided by a galaxy full of fellow travelers. Zaphod Beeblebrox, the two-headed, three-armed ex-hippie and totally out-to-lunch president of the galaxy. Trillian, formerly Trisha McMillan, Zaphod's girlfriend, whom Arthur tried to pick up at a cocktail party once upon a time zone. Marvin, a paranoid, brilliant, and chronically depressed robot. And Veet Vujagig, a former graduate student obsessed with the disappearance of all the ballpoint pens he's bought over the years. Where are these pens? Why are we born? Why do we die? For all the answers, stick your thumb to the stars. I think that this book is really fun. The series is really fun, absurd, and I think just a fun time. So yeah, like I was saying, we don't have all of the books in the series anymore, but we are trying to recollect them. And this next book is Into the Wild by John Krakauer. I'm not actually entirely sure how to pronounce his last name. And this is a fairly well-known story and had a pretty large movie come from it as well. It says, in April 1992, a young man from a well-to-do family hitchhiked to Alaska and walked alone into the wilderness north of Mount McKinley. His name was Christopher Johnson McCandless. He had given $25,000 in savings to charity, abandoned his car and most of his possessions, burned all the cash in his wallet, and invented a new life for himself. 4 months later, his decomposed body was found by a moose hunter. This is one of those stories that I think every person that reads it or even hears about it has a different takeaway, a different perspective, different opinions on Christopher's actions and ultimately his unfortunate ending. And this is based on a true story. And the cover has a picture of this bus in the wilderness. There's all of these trees in the background and wildflowers and bushes in the foreground here. And then all of the writing is slightly raised on the cover. So up here has the author's name in white, and all of the letters are slightly raised so that I can feel them when I drag my fingers across. And then it says, into the wild, and into the is in the white writing because it's on top of that picture, and wild is in a very bold black on a flat white background. I think that the way that they did the cover of this makes the writing really pop and stand out. And this is the spine, and it just says into the wild in black, and John Krakauer in this kind of navy blue. And this is the back. Not too much going on, just some quotes and the description of this book. It says, in this gripping account, acclaimed journalist John Krakauer reassembles the disquieting facts of Chris McCandless's short life and searches for clues to the mystery of his untimely death. Digging deeply, he also unravels the larger riddles surrounding McCandless's case, the pull of the American wilderness, the allure that it holds for restless young men, the complex bond between fathers and sons. A cherished contemporary classic of investigative journalism, Into the Wild blazes with power and luminosity on every page. Yeah, like I was saying, this is one of those stories that everybody is going to take something different away from it, and even my husband and I have different opinions on this, and the story is really fascinating and quite sad, but I think that it is well worth the read. And if you're not interested in reading it, the movie I think is also worth the watch. My next book is another classic, and this is probably my husband's favorite book, which is quite interesting. We'll get into that in a little bit, but this one is Cat's Cradle by Kurt Vonnegut, and the cover for this I think is so beautifully simple. This is another one of those classics that I've seen quite a few different covers for, but our edition has this very pretty, like bright blue with the name of the author in this almost like neon lime green, and the title of the book in this kind of scribbled font, and very sharp black. And then the image here is a bird cage, and it has this black shadow, and then the lines of the bird cage are and smooth. And this is the spine, and it has the title here in black, and it's kind of switched the font. So on the front it has the author's name in this type font and the title of the book in this kind of scrawled font. On the spine it flips that. The title of the book is in that type font, whereas the name is in that handwritten font. I think that's a really interesting choice. And this is the back. It says, Cat's Cradle is Kurt Vonnegut's satirical commentary on modern man and his madness, an apocalyptic tale of this planet's ultimate fate, a book that left an indelible mark on an entire generation of readers. Cat's Cradle is one of the 20th century's most important works, and Vonnegut at his very best. So this has the description of the book here, very briefly, in a blue box, and the writing is in black, but the quote is in that same green color font. And then here's this funny little scribbled drawing down here. So, if you have not read Cat's Cradle, it is a very interesting story about, you kind of have to think about the story from the events of the atomic bombs. I think that this is kind of the environment that Kurt Vonnegut wrote this story in, and it's almost a cautionary tale of our advancements in science and how maybe some things would be best left alone, but written in a very interesting way. There are some things that are a little bit dated in here, but overall I think that the story is still very relevant, unfortunately. And my husband and I were talking about this book the other day because he's rereading it right now. He's read this so many times, but he's rereading it. And my husband is a physicist, so he teaches physics and astronomy and math. And we were kind of laughing that some aspects of this book are a little bit anti-science, and not quite anti-science, but almost anti-scientific progression. And that's just a really interesting aspect of the book. And for my husband to be a scientist and love it so much, I think is quite telling of his personality. But this is a really interesting story and kind of a wild ride. My next book is The Stranger by Albert Camus. I believe that's how his name is pronounced, because he was a French writer. So this book was originally written in French, and then it was translated into English multiple times. I believe the first main translation was done by a UK translator, and then this version was done by an American translator. And this cover is really fun. It kind of has all of these black same font, I believe, and the author's name is just slightly smaller. And it does say winner of the Nobel Prize in Literature. It's a little bit hard to see down here. But it's this really creamy white color for a base, and then all of these lines are a very harsh black, and all of it is just a flat matte feeling, so none of it is glossy. It's all just the same. And this is the spine of the book. It says the stranger in black writing against that kind of white creamy background, and Albert Camus in white against a black background. It has these interesting shapes kind of taken from the front of the book, except the points are white instead of black, so it's flipped. So it's a really interesting contrast. And this is the back of the book, so very simple. It is this mainly black background with these white lines coming across. It says, Matthew Ward has done Camus and us a great service. I think Matthew Ward was the translator. The Stranger is now a different and better novel for its American readers. It is now our classic, as well as Francis. That was Chicago Sun-Times. It says, since it was first published in English in 1946, Albert Camus' first novel, The Stranger, has had a profound impact on millions of American readers. Through this story of an ordinary man who unwittingly gets drawn into a senseless murder on a sun-drenched Algerian beach, Camus explored what he termed the nakedness of man faced with the absurd. So this book is another one of those that is generally considered a modern classic, and a really interesting read. I think the first time that I read this, I had no idea what it was about, and it really goes through the character's ordinary life and his general ordinary thoughts and his day-to-day doings. And at first I was just kind of like, what is the point of this book? But it gets really interesting, and I think that there are some aspects culturally that are, a little bit different from American reading it, as well as, the time that this was written. This was, I think, written perhaps in the 1920s or 30s. I don't recall, actually. I wonder if it says. I'm not too sure. I wonder if maybe it came out in English the same year it was actually published. It says, I don't actually know. Maybe I will put a little note here. I'll look up when it was written. But so there are some, differences from, I think, a modern writing perspective, but overall a really interesting book. And I think that the cover is just very striking. It really stands out against the backdrop of a lot of more kind of subtle book covers. My next book here is called The Alchemist or decided not to finish it. But I still picked this one out because I think that the cover is really fascinating. It's a really cool cover. So on the edge here we have this really beautiful deep red, and then it's almost acting as a frame for this kind of lighter red orange color for the main background. And then we have almost what looks like a sun, kind of. There's this big circle here with all of these little designs kind of coming out from the edges. And all of this is raised to some degree. So the center here, all of these dots are raised. The writing of the alchemist is raised, and it is just such a fun cover. And then up here we have these two birds, and down here we have the pyramids, and the name of the author, not entirely sure if this is correct, but I believe it's Paulo Coelho. And this is apparently the 25th anniversary edition. And then inside this circle here, it says The Alchemist in mostly black font, but the alchemist word here, alchemist, has this orange-red color as a shadow behind the black lettering. And I think that it makes for a really interesting contrast. And then this is kind of like a map layout. So we see this little dashed line going through these mountains and river. It looks like this is supposed to be some water and some more water up here. Because I haven't read this, I don't have much to say. This is the side of the book, the spine. It has the author's name and the title in the same color and same font. And it has these really pretty designs on the top and the bottom here. And this is the back of the book. So the edge is that same deep red color as the front, and then the border is that kind of orangey red color, but the base color of the back of the book is this beautiful deep blue, and it has that similar imagery of almost like a sun, a really decorated, ornate sun. So there's this big circle with a yellow center with all of these beautiful designs kind of shooting off of it. And then there is this circle here that is almost sort of eclipsing in front. And it says, to realize one's destiny is a person's only obligation. If I recall correctly, I don't know if this book is generally highly regarded by the public. For some reason, I think I remember seeing kind of like mediocre reviews on Goodreads. But yeah, I haven't read it, so I don't really have much to say either way. But I just think that the cover is really beautiful, and I think they did a phenomenal job. I wonder if this cover is the original cover of the book, or if this is a special cover for the 25th anniversary edition. I'm not sure. Now this book is new to us. We recently purchased this one, and it is by author Naomi Klein, I believe, is a Canadian author, and it is called Doppelganger. And this book has this black, solid black cover, and the author's name and the title of the book are in the same font, just in different sizes. And then the word doppelganger has these kind of reiterations that get more and more fuzzy and covered and almost like, I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but it just gets harder and harder to read with each repetition. And this is the side of the book. It is just that very simple black with the white writing. It says Doppelganger and Naomi Klein. And this is the back of the book. It's this solid black color as the front. And all of the writing is in this white. There are quotes from reviews and newspapers here. And this is a brief description of the book. It says, in Doppelganger, the celebrated writer and activist Naomi Klein turns her focus on how today's turbulent politics and technology have distorted our shared reality. Transfixed by the transformation of Naomi Wolf, the woman she calls Other Naomi, from respected scholar to prolific agent of disinformation, Klein delves into our current societal afflictions, conspiracy theories, anti-vax wellness influencers, the divisive politics of identity, and of the climate crisis. Doppelganger has been hailed as an instant classic. So we picked this up because it kind of seemed interesting, and maybe that it would spark some interesting conversation of like our current times. And generally I think that the book's cover is quite simple, but I think that the artistic choice to have Doppelganger repeated and have it get more and more like disfigured and harder to read, I think that it was a really interesting choice based on the description. So I have not read this yet. My husband hasn't read this yet, so I don't have anything to say about it, and I don't recall looking at the Goodreads reviews, which I usually like to do when we get new books, because I don't really want to be spending money on something that I think I'm not going to like. So I don't recall looking into reviews for this, so who knows. But I just thought that the cover was really interesting. And this book here is called Atomland, a guided tour through the strange and impossibly small world of particle physics. So as I was mentioning earlier, my husband is a physicist, so this is one of his books. I have not read it, but I thought that the cover was really interesting. And it is this almost like map, and it has a layout of different, aspects and particles and different names, and I unfortunately am not a physicist, so I can't really tell you too much about everything here, but I thought that this was just a really interesting look, and it almost has this like old style binding of the spine here. It's this matte black, and this is the side. It has Atomland with kind of this atomic shape here and symbol. And here's the back. It into an unseen world, into the frontiers of human knowledge. Welcome to Atomland, the impossibly small world of quantum physics. With award-winning physicist John Butterworth as your guide, you'll set sail from Port Electron in search of strange new terrain. Each discovery will expand the horizons of your trusty map, from the Hadron Island to the Isle of Quarks and beyond. Just beware of dark energy and other sea monsters. A masterful work of metaphor, Atomland also gives form to the forces that shape the universe. Electromagnetism is a highway system, the strong force a railway, the weak force an airline. But like Butterworth, you may find that curiosity is the strongest force of all, one that pulls you across the subatomic seas toward the unknown realm of antimatter into the very outer reaches of the cosmos. Seems like a really interesting book if you are interested in physics. I have not read this. It does not particularly interest me, but I also don't know if my husband has actually read this. I just pulled it off of our shelf. So I don't know what his thoughts on this are. I don't know if, as a physicist, he would recommend or not recommend this. But I think that the front cover is really interesting and potentially a fascinating way to learn about different particles. So the front here, it has most of the font in this black color, but then it says particle physics in bright red, and it's the same red shade that they use for the atomic symbol here. So, really interesting cover, potentially an interesting book. I don't know, probably will never know. I think that there are too many books out there in the world to read something that you are not interested in or not having fun with. So that is all of the books that I wanted to show you today. I thought that some of those had just really interesting cover art, and I thought it might be relaxing to take a look as I describe what was on them and just some brief descriptions of each book. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day.